The emergency lights blinked red across the bridge of the gentle dawn. Ambassador, Calith pressed her six-fingered hands against the smooth control panel as she watched the holographic display show another colony under attack. The third one this week. Her blue skin had turned pale with worry, and her large eyes reflected the terrible images on the screen. "Show me the damage report from Crystal Bay Colony," she said to her aide, a young Zephyrian named Vex who had been working without sleep for 2 days straight. Vex's hands shook as he pulled up the files. 50,000 civilians evacuated. The spaceport is completely destroyed. The Vorthak took everything they could carry and burned the rest. His voice cracked with emotion. They killed anyone who tried to resist. Calith closed her eyes and tried to stay calm. In her 300 years of life, she had never seen anything like this. The Zephyrian people were traders and artists. They built beautiful cities and created music that could make other species cry with joy. They had never hurt anyone. They did not even have a word for genocide in their language until they met the Vorthak. The door to the bridge slid open with a soft whisper. 12 representatives from different species walked in, their faces showing the same fear and desperation that Calith felt in her hearts. Yes, hearts plural. Zephyrians had 2 hearts, and both of hers were beating too fast. Elder Vash came first. He was from the Mollusk Confederation, and his gray, wrinkled skin made him look ancient and wise. Behind him floated Court Singer of Truth, whose crystal body caught the red emergency lights and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. The gossamer delegate looked like she was made of silver mist, constantly shifting and changing shape. Friends. Calith began, her translator working to change her words into 12 different languages at once. We all know why we are here. The Vorthak raids are getting worse. They hit 3 more colonies this week. Our defense fleets cannot stop them. Captain Zil of the Aquatic Union spoke up. His gills fluttered with anxiety. My people tried to fight them at New Reef Station. We lost 8 ships and saved none of the civilians. The Vorthak weapons cut through our shields like they were made of soap. Our ship hulls are designed for exploration and trade, added the representative from the Silicon Mines. Her robotic voice had no emotion, but everyone could sense her frustration. We never built them for war because we never thought we would need to fight. Elder Vash made a wet, bubbling sound that meant deep thought in his species. Perhaps that was our mistake. We have lived in peace for so long that we forgot there are species in the galaxy who choose violence. The holographic display changed to show a map of Vorthak attacks over the past 6 months. Red dots marked destroyed colonies, and the pattern was clear. The raiders were moving closer to the core worlds where billions of peaceful beings lived and worked. At their current rate of expansion, Vex reported, they will reach the Zephyrian homeworld in 43 days. A heavy silence fell over the room. Everyone understood what that meant. The Zephyrian homeworld was home to 12 billion souls. It was the cultural center of their civilization, where they kept their greatest art and their most important libraries. If it fell, their entire way of life would die with it. What about the Galactic Peace Corps? Asked the crystalline representative. Surely they can help us. Calith made a bitter sound. The Peace Corps has 30 ships scattered across 50 sectors. The Vorthak have over 200 warships, and they are all designed for killing. The Peace Corps is meant to stop small conflicts between traders, not fight a war against professional killers. The other military species? Suggested Captain Zil. The Thorian Empire is fighting a civil war. The Iron Claw Federation is dealing with a plague on their homeworld. The Plasma Lords think we should just give the Vorthak what they want and hope they go away. Calith's voice grew bitter. No one wants to risk their own people to save ours. Another long silence. On the display, more red dots appeared as real-time reports came in. More colonies burning, more civilians dead or captured. More of their peaceful civilization being consumed by the endless hunger of the Vorthak. War machine. It was the gossamer delegate who spoke the words everyone was thinking but no one wanted to say. Her misty form pulsed with fear. There is one option we have not discussed. No, said Elder Vash immediately. Absolutely not. The humans, she continued, ignoring his objection. The Deathworlders from Sol? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Even saying the word humans out loud felt dangerous. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew about humans, and every civilized species was terrified of them. They come from a world that tried to kill them every single day, whispered Captain Zill. A planet where the weather can change from burning hot to freezing cold without warning, where the very air they breathe is poison to most other species. Their gravity would crush half the beings in this room, added the Silicon Mines representative. And they think it is normal, Court Singer resonated with a low, frightened tone. I have heard stories from the trade stations. They say humans sleep through sounds that would drive us insane. They eat things that would kill us. They heal from injuries that would mean death for anyone else. And their wars, Elder Vash shuddered. They fought wars on their own planet for thousands of years. Not civilized conflicts with rules and honor, but total wars where entire cities were destroyed and millions died. Caliph looked around the room at the faces of her allies. She saw the same terrible understanding in all of them. They were asking themselves the same question she was asking herself. Were they desperate enough to contact the most dangerous species in the galaxy? The stories say they are not evil, she said slowly. Just different. Their world made them into something we cannot understand. But the trade reports suggest they can be reasoned with. Reasoned with, yes, agreed the Gossamer delegate. But can they be controlled? If we ask the humans for help, what happens when they decide we are a threat? What happens when they turn those terrible weapons on us? Vex pulled up a new display. It showed the estimated casualties if the Vorthak reached the core worlds. The numbers were too big to understand. Trillions of lives. Hundreds of worlds. Thousands of years of art and culture and knowledge, all turned to ash. The humans have a saying, Caliph said quietly. Sometimes you must fight monsters with monsters. Elder Vash made a sound of defeat. And sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. But what choice do we have? Caliph asked. We can die slowly as the Vorthak destroy us piece by piece. Or we can take a chance that the humans will help us and not decide to conquer us themselves. She moved to the communication console. Her hands hovered over the controls that would send a message to the Sol system. Once she pressed those buttons, there would be no going back. They would have invited the most feared species in the galaxy into their space, all in favor of sending a distress signal to Earth. One by one, the representatives raised their hands, tentacles, or appendages. Even Elder Vash, though he looked like he was going to be sick, Caliph began typing the message. She kept it simple. A request for military assistance against raiders. Coordinates of the attack sites. An offer of payment and trade agreements. She did not mention how terrified they were of the humans themselves. Message sent, she announced. May the cosmic winds forgive us for what we have done. Outside the ship, the stars looked the same as they always had. But everyone on the bridge knew that something fundamental had changed. They had opened a door that could never be closed. Somewhere in the Sol system, the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen were about to receive their message, and they would answer. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center on Luna Base, watching Earth spin slowly below him through the massive viewing window. The blue and white planet looked peaceful from here, but Jake knew better. He had been born on that world, raised in its crushing gravity and hostile environment. His body was built for war, even if he preferred peace. The communication officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker, turned from his console with excitement in his eyes. Sir, we have received something interesting, a message from deep space. It is not from any human colony, Jake raised an eyebrow. Aliens? Yes, sir. The translation computers have been working on it for the past hour. It appears to be a distress call from something called the Zephyrian Council. Jake walked over to the main display screen. The message appeared in English, though he could see the strange symbols of the original language scrolling beneath it. He read it twice, then a third time to make sure he understood correctly. They are asking for military help, he said out loud. Some species called the Vorthak are attacking their colonies. They are offering payment and trade agreements. Captain. Lisa Wang entered the command center at that moment. She was small for a human, but Jake knew that her size was deceiving. Lisa had survived the Battle of Titan Station and the asteroid mining wars. Her dark eyes were sharp as she studied the alien message. "This is interesting," she said. "We have never received a request for help from aliens before. Usually they avoid us completely. Can you blame them?" asked Commander Rick Torres as he joined them. Rick was built like a tank, with scars on his arms from a dozen conflicts. The stories they tell about humans in the outer colonies are not exactly flattering. Jake had heard those stories too. To most alien species, humans were the boogeyman of the galaxy, the violent primitives from a death world who solved every problem with weapons and warfare. Some of the stories were true, Jake admitted to himself. Humans were very good at fighting. They had been practicing for thousands of years. "Sir, incoming call from Fleet Admiral Helen Carter," Sam announced. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the TSS Vengeance, the flagship of Earth's deep space fleet. Admiral Carter appeared on screen, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and her uniform perfectly pressed, despite being in zero gravity. "Jake, I assume you have seen the alien message," she said without preamble. "Yes, ma'am." "What are your thoughts?" "My thoughts are that if aliens are desperate enough to ask humans for help, the situation must be very bad indeed." Her expression was serious. "I have been reviewing our intelligence files on known alien species. The Vorthak are mentioned several times. They are raiders and slavers, mostly operating in the Outer Rim territories." Visa pulled up a star chart on her tablet. "According to this message, the attacks are moving toward the core worlds. If the Vorthak are expanding their operations, they might eventually reach human space." "Better to stop them now than fight them later," Rick said. "My Marines have been training for months with nothing to shoot at except targets and simulation pods. They are getting restless." Jake considered the situation carefully. As a military officer, he understood that sometimes violence was the only answer to violence. The aliens were asking for help against raiders and killers. This was exactly the kind of situation where human military power could do some good. "Admiral Carter, what forces do we have available for deployment?" "Battle Group 7 is currently on patrol near the Jupiter stations. 3 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, and the assault carrier Independence with a full Marine complement. We could have them ready to jump to hyperspace within 6 hours." Jake looked at the star charts showing the location of the alien distress call. It was far from human space in a sector they had never explored. The jump would take several days, and there was no guarantee they would find friendly forces when they arrived. "What about first contact protocols?" Lisa asked. "We have never worked with these alien species before. We do not know their customs or their military procedures." "We will figure it out when we get there," Jake said. "Right now civilians are dying while we debate protocol." Admiral Carter nodded approvingly. "I agree. Jake, you will command the mission. Lisa, Rick, you will accompany him as tactical and marine advisors. The objective is simple: stop the raiders, protect the civilians, and try not to start a galactic war." "Roger that," Jake replied. He was already mentally preparing for what lay ahead. Human ships were not like the vessels other species built. Where aliens focused on beauty and efficiency, humans built their ships for survival and firepower. The vessels of Battle Group 7 looked like what they were: instruments of war. Within an hour, Jake was aboard his flagship, the TSS Relentless. The ship was 2 kilometers long and bristled with railguns, missile launchers, and point defense systems. The armor was thick enough to stop most known weapons, and the engines were powerful enough to outrun anything they could not fight. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Brooks met them in the ship's briefing room. She commanded the Marine contingent, 5,000 of the toughest fighters humanity had ever produced. Her soldiers were trained for every type of combat, from ship-to-ship boarding actions to planetary invasions. "Colonel, what is the status of your troops?" Jake asked. "Ready for anything, sir." We have been studying the limited intelligence on Vorthak raiders. They appear to use standard raider tactics, hit hard, grab what they can, and run before reinforcements arrive. My people are trained to counter exactly that kind of enemy. Jake activated the ship's communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. We have received a distress call from alien civilians under attack by hostile forces. Our mission is to provide military assistance and protect innocent lives. We represent not just Earth, but humanity itself. Let us show the galaxy what humans do when someone calls for help. The response came back immediately from all ships. Roger that, Admiral. Jake looked out at the stars as the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. Somewhere out there, aliens were dying while raiders destroyed their homes and killed their families. The aliens had called for help, and help was coming. They had asked for military assistance, but Jake wondered if they understood what they were really getting. They were getting the full attention of humanity's war machine. They were getting soldiers who had been forged in the fires of a world that never stopped trying to kill them. They were getting the descendants of predators who had clawed their way to the top of their planet's food chain through millions of years of violence and survival. The Vorthak raiders were about to discover why most alien species preferred to avoid human space. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, announced the navigation officer. Jump, Jake ordered. The stars stretched into lines of light as the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying death and salvation to a distant corner of the galaxy. The aliens had called for help, and the most dangerous species in the known universe was answering that call. In a few days, the Vorthak would learn what it meant to fight humans. Jake almost felt sorry for them, almost. Captain HFY stood on the bridge of his raider ship, the Bone Render, watching the burning colony below through the main viewing screen. Smoke rose from a dozen fires across the settlement of New Haven. His warriors had done good work today. They had taken everything valuable and destroyed the rest, just as the Vorthak way demanded. Captain, his weapons officer Krell hissed through sharp teeth, our scouts report unknown ships approaching the system. HFY turned all four of his eyes toward the tactical display. 7 new contacts had appeared at the edge of the system, moving fast toward the colony. He had never seen ship designs like these before. They were angular and brutal-looking, with no artistic curves or decorative elements. These ships looked like they were built for one purpose only: war. Are they reinforcements for the colony? HFY asked. Unknown, Captain. The ships do not match any design in our database. They are broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Let me hear it. A voice came through the speakers, speaking perfect galactic standard with a strange accent that HFY had never heard before. Vorthak vessels, this is Admiral Morrison of the Earth Fleet. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system or face the consequences. HFY laughed, a sound like metal grinding against stone. Earth Fleet? He had never heard of any species called Earth. These must be some new allies of the weak colonists, thinking they could intimidate the mighty Vorthak with threats. Open a channel, he ordered. Unknown ships, I am Captain HFY of the Vorthak Raider Fleet. You are interfering with a legitimate salvage operation. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. The response came back immediately. 30 seconds? Captain, choose wisely. HFY's crest bristled with anger. No one spoke to the Vorthak that way. He had conquered 17 systems and destroyed hundreds of ships. His fleet consisted of 23 vessels, all armed with the best weapons Vorthak technology could produce. Battle stations, he commanded. All ships, attack pattern Razor Storm. Show these newcomers what happens when they challenge the Vorthak. The Raider fleet moved into formation. HFY watched with satisfaction as his ships spread out to surround the smaller human force. Plasma cannons charged to full power, and fusion missiles loaded into their tubes. This would be over quickly. Fire, HFY ordered. Space erupted with weapons fire. Bright plasma bolts streaked toward the human ships, followed by dozens of missiles. This was the Vorthak signature attack. Overwhelming firepower designed to destroy enemy morale and ships in the first few seconds of combat on the surface of New Haven Colony. The surviving Zephyrians watched from their shelters. Ambassador Kelleth pressed her face against a blast-resistant window, her heart's pounding as she saw the battle beginning in space above them. She had called for help, but now she feared she had doomed both her people and their rescuers. The humans. "Ships are so small," whispered Vex beside her. "How can 7 ships fight 23? Kelleth did not answer. She was watching the human vessels move in response to the Vorthek attack. Instead of the panic or desperate evasion she expected, the human ships moved with cold precision. Point defense systems that she had never seen before came online, tracking incoming missiles with impossible accuracy. Impossible, breathed Vex. The human ships were shooting down missiles and deflecting plasma bolts with weapons that fired so fast they looked like solid beams of light. The overwhelming Vorthek attack was being stopped by systems that no civilized species would ever think to build, aboard the TSS Relentless. Admiral Morrison watched the enemy attack with professional interest. "Conventional plasma weapons and guided missiles," he reported to his tactical officer. "Nothing we have not seen before." "All missiles intercepted," Captain Wang reported from her station. "Point defense systems operating at 60% capacity. The enemy weapons are actually less advanced than we expected." Morrison nodded. Human military doctrine had been shaped by thousands of years of warfare against other humans. Every weapon system was designed to counter other weapon systems. Every tactic had a counter-tactic. The humans had learned long ago that the best defense was often a good offense. "Return fire," Morrison ordered. "Target their lead ships. Show them what human weapons can do." The TSS Relentless opened fire with its main railguns. The magnetic accelerators launched metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. These were not energy weapons that could be deflected by shields. These were solid projectiles that carried kinetic energy measured in megatons. The first Vorthek ship to be hit simply disappeared. The railgun slug punched through its shields, through its armor, and through its entire hull in a fraction of a second. The ship broke apart in a silent explosion of debris and atmosphere. "Contact," reported Weapons Officer Danny Phillips. "Direct hit on Target 1. Target destroyed." 2 more Vorthak ships died in the next volley. The human destroyers joined the attack, their smaller railguns adding to the devastating firepower. In less than 2 minutes, half of the Vorthak fleet was either destroyed or badly damaged. Captain Nekvior stared at his tactical display in shock. His mighty fleet was being torn apart by weapons he did not understand. The human ships moved like predators, coordinating their attacks with precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. "Captain, we are receiving multiple breach warnings," his damage control officer reported. "Something has attached to our hull." Before Nekvior could respond, explosions echoed through his ship. Emergency lights came on as sections of the hull were blown inward. Through the smoke and chaos, he saw something that made his blood freeze. Armored figures were moving through the breach. They wore powered armor that looked like it could survive anything, and they carried weapons that fired solid projectiles. Instead of energy beams, these were not raiders or pirates. These were professional soldiers, and they were coming for him. "Boarders," he gasped. "They are boarding our ship." This was impossible. Civilized species did not board enemy vessels during combat. It was too dangerous, too primitive, too brutal. But these humans were doing exactly that. Fighting their way through his ship deck by deck, Lieutenant Colonel Amy Brooks led the boarding party personally. Her powered armor was designed for exactly this kind of close-quarters combat. The Vorthak defenders fired energy weapons that barely scratched her armor, while her kinetic rifle punched through their defenses like they were made of paper. "Secure the bridge," she ordered her Marines. "Take prisoners if possible, but protect yourselves first." The human Marines moved through the Vorthek ship like a force of nature. They used breaching charges to create new passages when the corridors were blocked. They threw grenades around corners and used coordinated tactics that the raiders had never encountered, Within an hour, the battle was over. The surviving Vorthik ships were fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. Captain Vec Vor found himself in human custody, his ship captured and his crew either dead or surrendering. Ambassador Caleth watched from the surface as the human ships took control of the system. She felt relief that her people were safe, but also a deep fear of what she had witnessed. The humans had not just won the battle. They had dominated it completely, using weapons and tactics that revealed a level of military sophistication that no peaceful species could match. "Are they going to attack us next?" Vex asked quietly. Caleth did not know how to answer. The humans had come when called, and they had saved the colony. But they had also shown that they were exactly what the galaxy feared, the most dangerous predators the universe had ever produced, and they had barely even tried. General Kreshtool sat in his command center deep inside asteroid Kalo 7, watching the reports flood in from across Vorthik territory. Ship after ship was reporting attacks from the unknown human fleet. His carefully planned empire of terror was falling apart in less than a week. "Sir, the humans have destroyed our base at Crimson Nebula," reported his communications officer. "They used some kind of weapon that turned the entire asteroid into dust." Kreshtool's scaled hands clenched into fists. The Crimson Nebula base had taken 2 years to build and had been home to 50,000 Vorthak warriors. Now it was gone along with everyone inside it. "What about our fleet at the spiral gates?" he asked. "Destroyed, sir. The humans used ramming attacks. They actually flew their ships directly into ours at high speed. No civilized species would ever do such a thing." Kreshtool felt fear creeping into his hearts. The Vorthak had been raiders for centuries, attacking weak colonies and peaceful traders. They had never faced an enemy that fought back with such terrible efficiency. These humans did not follow any rules of civilized warfare. They fought like wild animals, but with the technology and coordination of an advanced species. A new alarm sounded throughout the command center. Kreshtool looked at the tactical display and saw his worst nightmare coming true. 7 human ships had appeared at the edge of the asteroid field, moving directly toward his hidden base. "How did they find us?" he demanded. "This location is supposed to be secret." "Unknown, sir. Our stealth systems should have hidden us from any known sensor technology." But humans, Kreshtool was beginning to understand, were not like any known species. They came from a world that had tried to kill them every day for millions of years. Their technology was designed not for exploration or art, but for survival and warfare. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Brooks stood in the hangar bay of the assault carrier Independence, checking her equipment one final time. Her Marines were lined up behind her, 500 of the most dangerous soldiers humanity had ever produced. Each one wore powered armor that could survive in vacuum, underwater, or in the middle of a volcano. "Listen up," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the CUM system. "Intelligence says this rock is home to roughly 100,000 Vorthak raiders. They have been using it as a base to attack civilian colonies for the past 5 years. She activated a holographic display showing the interior of the asteroid. The base is built like a fortress, with multiple levels and heavy defensive positions. The enemy expects us to attack through the main docking bays and fight our way through their prepared defenses." Sergeant Paul Davis raised his hand. "Are we going to disappoint them, ma'am?" Brooks smiled coldly. "Oh yes, Sergeant. We are going to disappoint them very much indeed." The human assault plan was typically unconventional. Instead of attacking the obvious entrances, they used mining charges to blow new holes directly into the asteroid. While the Vorthak defenders waited at their prepared positions, human Marines came through the walls and floors and ceilings. Brooks led the first wave personally, her armor sensors mapping the interior of the base in real time. The Vorthak had built their fortress assuming their enemies would be civilized species that followed the normal rules of warfare. They had not planned for humans. "Breach Team Alpha, set charges on level 7, she ordered. "Breach Team Beta, come in through the power core section. "Charlie Team, we are going straight through the command center wall." The Vorthik defenders fired energy weapons at the humans, but the powered armor was designed to handle much worse. On Earth, humans had learned to fight in environments that would kill most other species instantly. A little enemy fire was not going to stop them. Private Matt Johnson planted a shaped charge on what his sensors told him was a load-bearing wall. "Fire in the hole," he announced, and triggered the explosion. The wall disappeared in a cloud of dust and debris, opening a new path directly into the enemy stronghold. General Kreshtool watched his carefully planned defenses crumble as the humans tore his base apart. They did not advance through corridors like civilized soldiers. They made their own paths, using explosives to create new routes and fighting in 3 dimensions instead of just along the floor. "Sir, they have breached levels 3, 7, and 12 simultaneously," his tactical officer reported. "They are using some kind of gas that interferes with our vision systems, and they move so fast," added another officer. "How can they run in this gravity? It should slow them down." Kreshtool realized the terrible truth. The asteroid's gravity was 3 times normal for most species, but these humans had evolved on a death world where such gravity was everyday life. What slowed down his defenders was normal for them. The human attack was like nothing he had ever seen. They used smoke grenades to confuse defenders, flashbang devices to blind them, and coordinated their assault with precision that spoke of thousands of years of practice. Every move was calculated to cause maximum confusion and fear. Sergeant Davis kicked down a door and found himself facing 12 Vorthok warriors in a defensive position. They opened fire immediately, their plasma rifles lighting up the corridor with deadly energy. Davis rolled behind cover and called for support. "Brooks, I need a distraction on my position." "Copy that, Davis. Incoming." A section of the ceiling exploded downward, and 3 more Marines dropped into the room behind the Vorthok position. The defenders found themselves caught between 2 groups of humans, and the fight was over in seconds. This was how humans fought wars, not with honor or nobility, but with overwhelming violence applied precisely where it would do the most damage. They had learned these tactics fighting each other on their homeworld, and now they were using them against an enemy that had no idea how to respond. Brooks reached the command center after 2 hours of brutal fighting. She found General Kreshtool surrounded by the bodies of his guards, holding a plasma pistol to his own head. "Stay back, human," he hissed. "I will not be taken alive by Deathworld monsters." Brooks kept her weapon trained on him but did not fire. "General, you are defeated. Your base is captured, your fleet is destroyed, and your raiders are scattered. Surrender and live or die here, your choice." "Why?" Kreshtool asked. "Why do you fight for aliens you have never met? What do you gain from protecting these weak species?" Brooks considered the question seriously. "On our world, General, we learn that the strong protect the weak. Not because we have to, but because we choose to. That is what separates civilization from barbarism." Kreshtool looked around at his ruined command center. Everything he had built was gone. His empire of fear had been destroyed by creatures from a world that had forged them into perfect warriors. "You are monsters," he whispered. "Yes," Brooks agreed. "But we are monsters who protect innocent people from other monsters. That makes all the difference." The general slowly lowered his weapon and placed it on the floor. The last major Vorthok base had fallen, and with it their ability to threaten the peaceful species of the galaxy. Admiral Morrison received the report, while his fleet secured the perimeter of the asteroid field. The mission was complete. The Vorthok threat had been eliminated with minimal human casualties. Another successful operation for the Earth fleet. He looked out at the stars and wondered what the galaxy would make of humanity's latest display of military power. The peaceful species had called for help, and humans had answered. But in saving them, humanity had also reminded everyone exactly why most aliens preferred to avoid the Sol system. The Deathworlders had done their job. The galaxy was a safer place, but it was also a more frightening one. 3 days after the last Vorthok ship fled beyond the galactic rim, Ambassador Keleth stood in the ruins of New Haven's main square. Human engineers worked around her, rebuilding power lines and communication towers with the same efficient speed they had used to destroy the Raider fleet. The sight made her feel uncomfortable in ways she could not explain. The humans moved like machines, but she knew they were not machines. They were living beings who had learned to work together with terrifying precision. She watched a team of 5 humans replace an entire power grid in 2 hours, something that would have taken her people 2 days to accomplish. "Ambassador," said a voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral Morrison approaching, his heavy boots making deep prints in the soft ground. Even without his armor, he was intimidating. His body was built for the crushing gravity of his homeworld, and every movement showed the strength that came from evolving on a planet that tried to kill its inhabitants every day. "Admiral Morrison," she replied, bowing in the traditional Zephyrian manner. "We cannot thank you enough for what you have done. You saved our colonies, our people, our entire civilization." Morrison nodded, but his expression remained serious. "We did what needed to be done, Ambassador. The Vorthak were a threat to innocent people. That made them our enemy." Behind them, a human transport ship landed with a thunderous roar that made Caleth's sensitive ears ring. More soldiers emerged, carrying supplies and equipment to help rebuild the colony. But Caleth noticed that these soldiers never relaxed their guard. Their eyes constantly scanned for threats, and their hands stayed near their weapons. "Admiral, may I ask you something?" Caleth said carefully. "Of course. How do you control it?" "This capacity for violence that your species possesses? How do you keep it from consuming you?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment, watching his people work. "We do not control it, Ambassador. We aim it. Every human child learns that violence is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used to build or to destroy. We choose to build." Captain Lisa Wang joined them, carrying a datapad with reconstruction reports. Her small size made Caleth feel better, until she remembered that this human had personally destroyed 3 Vorthak ships during the battle. Size meant nothing when it came to human danger. "The colony should be fully operational within a week," Wang reported. "We have also established orbital defense platforms that will deter any future attacks." "Defense platforms?" Caleth asked. "Automated weapon systems," Morrison explained. "They will engage any hostile ships that enter this system. Your people will be safe." Caleth felt a chill run through her body. The humans were giving them weapons. Not energy shields or sensor arrays, but actual weapons designed to kill. No civilized species had ever offered such a thing. "Are these weapons human technology?" she asked nervously. "Simplified versions," Wang said. "We removed the more advanced systems that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. These will stop raiders, but they cannot threaten major military forces. Even simplified human weapons were probably more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had ever built." Caleth realized that the humans were being careful not to give them anything too dangerous, but the fact that they had to consider such things was frightening. Elder Vash approached their group, his gray skin looking even more wrinkled than usual. The stress of the past week had aged him visibly. "Admiral Morrison, the Galactic Council has asked me to present you with this." He held out a crystal medallion that glowed with soft blue light. "It is the Medal of Galactic Service, our highest honor. It has never been given to a species outside the Council before." Morrison took the medal and examined it carefully. "Thank you, Elder Vash. We are honored to receive this recognition. The Council also wishes to discuss trade agreements and military cooperation," Vash continued. "Many species would benefit from human protection services." Caleth saw something change in Morrison's expression. His eyes became colder, more calculating. "Elder Vash, let me be very clear about something. We did not come here to become the galaxy's police force. We came because civilians were being murdered by raiders." "Of course, Admiral. But surely you can see the benefits of formal alliances with peaceful species." "What I see," Morrison said, slowly, "is a galaxy full of species that have forgotten how to protect themselves. You have lived in peace for so long that you cannot recognize when that peace is threatened." Captain Wang stepped forward. "Admiral, perhaps we should discuss this privately." But Morrison continued speaking, his voice growing harder. "The Vorthak were not a new threat. Our intelligence shows they have been raiding for decades, yet none of you built defenses. None of you prepared for war. You waited until the killing reached your core worlds before asking for help. Elder Vash's tentacles drooped with shame. We are peaceful people, Admiral. We do not think in terms of warfare. And that is exactly the problem, Morrison replied. Peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is something that must be protected, defended, and sometimes fought for. If you forget that, you will always be victims. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lieutenant Colonel Brooks. Her armor was cleaned and polished, but Kelleth could still see scorch marks where enemy weapons had struck her. This human had personally led the assault on the Vorthek base, and she had walked through enemy fire like it was a gentle rain. Admiral, we have finished processing the Vorthek prisoners, Brooks reported. We found detailed records of their operations. They have been planning to attack the Zephyrian homeworld for months. Kelleth felt her heart skip a beat. The homeworld, with its 12 billion inhabitants, had been hours away from destruction. What will happen to the prisoners? Elder Vash asked. They will be turned over to the surviving colonies for trial, Morrison said. Justice should come from those they wronged, not from us. And if they escape? If they regroup and attack again? Morrison's smile was not pleasant. Elder Vash, let me tell you something about human military doctrine. We do not just defeat our enemies. We make sure they never want to fight us again. The surviving Vorthek will spread stories about what happens when you attack human-protected worlds. Those stories will do more to keep the peace than any fleet. As the human ships prepared to leave the system, Kelleth found herself watching them with mixed emotions. They had saved her people, but they had also changed something fundamental about the galaxy. The peaceful species now knew that there were beings willing and able to use overwhelming violence to protect the innocent. Ambassador, Morrison said as he prepared to board his shuttle, remember what I told you about peace? It must be defended. We have given you the tools to defend yourselves. Use them wisely. Will we see humans again? Kelleth asked. That depends, Morrison replied. If you need us to save you from raiders and killers, we will come. If you need us to fight your wars of conquest or expansion, we will not. Choose your future carefully. The human fleet departed as quickly as it had arrived, disappearing into hyperspace with a flash of light. They left behind rebuilt colonies, defense platforms, and a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species from Sol. Kelleth stood in the rebuilt square of New Haven, watching the stars where the human ships had vanished. Her people were safe, but she understood now that safety came with a price. The galaxy had learned that peace was not free, and that sometimes it took monsters to stop other monsters. The humans had answered their call for help, but in doing so, they had reminded everyone that the universe was a dangerous place where only the strong survived. The peaceful species would have to decide what kind of future they wanted, one where they remained helpless victims, or one where they learned to protect themselves. The choice, as Admiral Morrison had said, was theirs to make.